How long had you been in Los Angeles before you sold your first script?
Amazingly, about a year and a half. I came out here from Birmingham, Alabama, knowing no one. I don't mean I didn't know anybody in the business. I didn't know anybody. And I went to a little film school, open enrollment film school called Sherwood Oaks Experimental College, which doesn't exist anymore. This was in the 70s. It was kind of a hippy-dippy film school. And I met people there, and I sort of got, professionals and people like me who were starting out, and one thing led to another. I partnered up with a fellow who I liked his work, he liked my work, and we sort of needed the emotional support at the time. We wrote some spec television scripts. I wrote a feature material on my own, but we wrote some spec television stuff. We sent it out to agents. About a year after I'd gotten here, we got an agent, which probably the way we did it, you can't do it anymore. And also, I'm not sure agents are necessarily as important as they used to be for your success. I know plenty of writers who have had at least some modest success in television without an agent at all. And then about 6 months after that, we sold an episode of The Jeffersons. So that was my first professional script. And then we freelanced for 2 or 3 years after that. Just if in those days, it's not that not that way anymore. But in those days, there was enough freelance material work that if you sold 2 or 3 or 4 a year, that was enough to live on. And you can't do that anymore. There's almost no freelance work outside of animation. There is freelance writing and animation. But beyond that, there's not much, if any. And so, but then we wound up on staff, and one thing led to another.
Was that considered fairly quick for that time, or things move faster today?
No, I think it was fast for any time. I have a lot of friends who took them 3, 4, 5 years to get to the same place, and they're just as talented. It's just that, the key is you must write great material, honestly, then and now. And I don't mean good material. I don't mean, now that's just as good as other things I've seen on TV. That's not good enough. I'm talking about great material, stuff that jumps off the page, that makes people sit up and take notice. That's what you're trying to get to. And if you can do that, then it's just a matter of trying to get enough eyeballs on it so that you'll break through, and that's just a matter of time. I also know someone who came out here from Texas, knew nobody. She had written a spec episode of Head of the Class, which is a show that's how I met her. And she happened to like that show. It wasn't particularly a good show, to be honest with you. It was okay, but she liked it and wrote in a spec episode. She happened to get an apartment in Burbank, a couple of blocks from Warner Brothers. She called up Warner Brothers and said, I've got this spec script. Called up Warner Brothers, asked for Head of the Class. The operator sent her phone call there. The phone happened to ring when the executive producer happened to be walking by the desk, and his secretary happened to be away, and he picked it up. And she said, I have this spec script that I wrote. Would anybody there read it? And he was so charmed by it, he said, sure, drop it off. He said, where are you? Well, we're at 100 Pass Avenue. He said, that's 2 blocks from my apartment. I'll walk it over. She walked it over, handed it to him. He read it and hired her on the spot.
Wow.
It was like a week after she'd gotten here. That's insane. But that's Hollywood, and it happens sometimes. Other people just as talented took them 5 years. It was just a question of when the planets align for you. In the end, that's what it comes down to. If you don't have great material, it's an uphill battle, no matter what. If you do have great material, it's just a matter of hanging in there till your chance comes.
But you've also said, in addition to having great material, that the writing part is a small portion. It's really sales, sales, sales.
Yeah, my father was a salesman, and I used to vow I would never be a salesman. I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up, but it's not going to be sales. And of course, what I discovered when I came out here is it's most of what you're doing is selling. Either whether you're pitching it verbally or putting together a pitch document that's going to be sent around. What the difference is, when my father was selling things, he had a tangible product that he was selling. When I'm selling something, when any writer's selling something, you're selling in hot air. I mean, it's invisible, it's a story, right? So it's like you're opening up your briefcase and there's nothing in it. So you have to tell a really, really good story. And so I had to learn how to become a good pitcher. And by the time after about 5-10 years, I got to be quite good at it. But I don't know if it's as important now as it used to be, since so many meetings now are either via Zoom or there is no meeting. You're just exchanging information, documentation. Pitch decks didn't exist in those days for pilots and movies. Now they're pretty much de rigueur. So your pitch deck and your script are going to do a lot of the selling, but still you have to be in sales mode, and you have to understand that when you walk into somebody's office, or metaphorically even, they're not there to make your dream come true. So you're thinking, I want to make my movie because I want to get my vision out to the world. They don't care about your vision. They're wondering, can I make money on this? And if so, how? So that's how, in order to get a movie made, you have to think in those terms. Somebody once explained it this way, and I thought it was a good way to do it. If Picasso painted a painting, he took $10 worth of material and created something worth $1 million. We're taking $1 million worth of material and making something worth $10, in the form of a ticket sale or a DVD or a cable bill. So we have to sell a lot of copies in order to earn back the cost of what it makes to paint our paintings, our metaphorical paintings. You have to think money is a factor. It's not, it's not just being a crass commercial business obsessed person. You can't get your film made without money. It costs too much money. Even the cheapest film costs, $1 million. So that's a lot of money to spend on something that's ethereal and hypothetical. So you better put together a strong pitch document. You better give us some thought to it and really think about who you're sending it to, who you're selling to. What do they want? Well, how can they make money at this? And have that in your mind as you do it. There's plenty of Hollywood stories about how the money people have been outwitted, but first you've got to get the money. You can't make your film without some kind of money. So sooner or later you better learn how to sell.
Do you think that's something that's hard for some artists to reconcile because they are like, I'm anti-capitalist, I don't want to be this, the whole, I've said this before, but like the say anything, I don't want to make anything that's sold or bought, but we need that. It's not necessarily all bad.
It's not necessarily all bad, because to bring it back to that idea of the audience antenna, is that in the end, being commercial at the very least forces you to think about the audience. And I don't believe great art can be made in the absence of an audience. The audience is the completion of art. Until an audience sees it, it's not art. It's just, a lump of clay. So yeah, that commercialism forces us to do that. You could make a compelling argument that that Stanley Kubrick's work was better when he had to worry about the budget and he had to worry about whether an audience was going to go see this, than after he became so successful he could do anything he wants. I can make an argument now, for example, that because Netflix just hands out checks to big name filmmakers and lets them do whatever they want, because Netflix doesn't really care whether the films are any good, they just want to be able to say, oh look, we've got the next David Fincher movie, regardless of what it is. They don't really care whether it's any good or not. I can make an argument that Fincher's work is better when he had to worry about box office sales than when he was allowed to do whatever he wanted. I think his last two movies, to be honest, they weren't horrible. He's too good a director to make a horrible film, but they aren't particularly good. They're certainly not his best. And the same is true with other artists that have done work for Netflix. They have a blank check, essentially, and freedom to do whatever they want, but that isn't necessarily translated into their best work. Sometimes it's better that you're thinking about, is an audience going to like this? Maybe I better give this another thought before I commit to this scene or this screenplay.